Hi everyone, and welcome to today's paint, my very first installment of 31 Days of Halloween. Remember, while you're here, to hit that like and subscribe, and let's get started. So I've already painted the outline of my ribs here on Matt, my model, and I've painted the inside of, or what's going to be the outside of the rib white, and what's going to be the curved back of the rib yellow, so that I can keep all my lines separate and not get confused as I start to paint things in. I know when I have a lot of crude lines on my model, for me personally, it can sometimes get hard and you get lost and you fill in the wrong thing. So I'm filling in the fronts white with a little bit of yellow, and then I'm filling in the backs with more yellow and less white, but it's definitely still more of a white base. Then I'm gonna go in with black that's watered down with white, and I'm gonna go ahead and create some shading lines. And then I'm gonna go back through with a wet brush and blend those all in. So I wanna make sure everything's nice and blended. I'm blending some dark tones into the front of the ribs, the back of the ribs, making sure to shadow everything so it looks more three-dimensional and a little bit more natural. Now I've placed the outline of the heart on top. I looked at an anatomical picture and just tried my best to paint an outline from there. I painted it in red, and now I'm going over the veins in blue to create a bluish purple color in these main veins. And then I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna paint all the red base in and go ahead and start doing my shading. I don't really know how to direct you to do this besides shade, shade, shade. I'm using purples, I'm using black, I'm using white for highlights, and just shading everything in and making it look really nice, and then moving into my blacked out background. Now when you get to this part of the paint, using less water is better, but you also don't want to allow your paint to get chunky and kind of chunk up on you. So use a little bit of water, paint, a little bit of water, paint. Make sure you're keeping that paint nice and smooth. You don't want it to turn into muck inside of your puck, and you also don't want to be dry rubbing paint onto your model's skin. I've decided at this point that it doesn't have quite enough depth for me, and I'd like it to have a little bit of color as well. So I'm going back in with a blue and adding some blue lowlights to some of my darkest parts of the ribs. And then I'm once again going to go in with a damp brush and just blend those out so it blends really nicely into my paint as a whole. Next, I'm gonna go on in and create kind of the glow around the heart. I want it to look a little bit like a statue of like Jesus or Mary with a big glowing heart in the center, only I've put this one a bit off kilter, and gonna make it nice and glowy. I decided at this point that I was pretty happy with the chest. I was putting a jacket over his arms, and I was going to move up onto his face. I originally had the camera sitting at this angle as I start to go in and paint the whole skull on his face, and that's all hunky-dory, but he's kind of tall, and when you see the next clip, you can see that I actually have a patch on the back of my neck because my neck and shoulders are starting to give out on me right now. So this was just too hard for me to paint at this angle, and I decided afterward that this is a bad call, and I was going to sit Matt back down, and we were going to paint with him sitting down. And that also did not work in my favor, because when I sat down, I was sticking my head in front of the camera, so you guys only get chunks of this skull paint, but definitely enough to walk you through everything. So excuse my really bad roots. Love me, don't hate me. Here we go. So now that I have everything painted white besides the hollows of his eyes that I want to be, you know, black holes that suck the soul right out of you, I'm going to paint those black, and then I'm going to start working into the hollows of his cheeks. I'm going ahead and painting over the hollows of his cheeks and down into his mouth where I want the teeth to be. I am working around a bit of beard stubble today, so if your guy has some facial hair he's not willing to let go of and you're trying the skull paint, don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how to get around that. So I'm going in with a little bit of gray and yellow into the temples. I'm going ahead and highlighting around the eyes to create a bit of a highlight with a gray and the yellow. And then I'm painting the teeth in just on his lips and leaving that line to trace around the edge of his actual beard. And there we go. Blend it all out, make it beautiful. If you want to follow Matt on Instagram, I have his information below. And if you want to see more of these pictures, find literally either one of us on Instagram. Goodbye.